All right. Hey, everyone, and thank you for coming to part three of scheduling notifications. This is part three of a three-part series. The first part was maximizing custom actions. Second part, we were creating chat flows, and today we're going to be doing scheduling notifications. What we'll build today is a screen where you can see all of your notifications, and then also a screen to create scheduling notifications, and then also a screen to manage those notifications along with all the collection uh, back end stuff that needs to go with that. So without further ado, let me share my screen and let's jump right in. All right. So if you remember, we were building this app for Santa's Village so people could make purchases and then chat with customer support. And today's portion is about notifications. So let's go ahead and build that out. One thing that you might consider right away is at the bottom of your screen, we have the bottom navigation and we have these different menu items. Most of the time, a lot of notifications will sit at the bottom of screens of apps. That way people can have quick access to them and be able to see and stay up to date on all the latest notifications. One pro tip that you might consider, and I'm going to change this name from search, we're going to link this to a notifications page, is instead of using the title notifications, you may want to change that to alerts. And the main reason is because if you type in notifications, it's just a lot more characters than the other than just saying alerts. And so if you have a crowded bottom nav here, or if you have a screen that's going to be more narrow, alerts just allows you to have the smaller text and it still conveys the same message. You can even go here and type in, look for an icon. We're going to do the notifications icon. And so now anytime someone enters your app, they will be able to see alerts and be able to recognize what that is. So let's build the screen that goes with it. So this is the second tab. Let's go to link, and we're going to link to a new screen. And we're just going to call this screen notifications. All right. So we've created that link. Now let's go to the screen. If you're not familiar with the screen search, it's definitely a wonderful feature that you can get to all your screens very quickly. And I'm going to pull this down here just to make it easy. So we're going to go from alerts to notifications. Let's give this a title here. Let's create a top nav. And I like to do that with my rectangles. So we have the rectangle here. We can change this color to even be the default background. Let's give it a title. So let's put in alerts. And then let's make it, a lot of times Apple will do a 20 or 22 for a title. We can center that, and then let's make that in the middle. And then let's make sure we have plenty of space for anything else we want to add to here. We can even then go in and add an icon for a back button. I like to do this, especially if people are coming to the alert screen from different sections of the app. That will be helpful. And then one thing that we want to make sure and add is an ability to create an alert. So let's do that. We can just in a really simple way. We're going to do another icon. We're going to do the add sign or the plus sign, and we can make that here. If not everyone in the app is supposed to be able to add alerts, it's not an uncommon feature to go to the users section and create a true false toggle. You can do admin. And then what you can do is under the icon, and we're going to label this so we know what's going to happen, add alert, we'll call it. You can then change this visibility to be a sometimes visible if the logged in user admin is true. And what that allows you to do is anyone who comes to this alert or notification screen, the plus sign will be visible based on if they're an admin. For now, let's just leave that off and make it always visible. And so we have our screen set up. You could even come in here and add a search for the notifications. And I typically do searches with a text input. And I don't know if anyone's noticed, but Apple's latest update typically has the search bar at the bottom now. So if you want to, you can mimic that behavior. And then you can edit the styles to make it even look like the little circle or little rounding that Apple does. And typically 20 is a safe way to do that. And then you can resize this. I would also change the padding here to maybe a 12 or maybe even a 20 to kind of give it a centered feel. And then you can change the placeholder text to search, just giving people directions for what to do. Then you can center that and maybe even add a little shadow. And then if you want it to stay at the bottom, you can go to layout and do sticky while scrolling. And that way, whenever users are looking through the list of alerts, they can have this search at the bottom. My thinking is that Apple and other iOS operating systems are wanting that to be closer to your thumb, so you don't have to reach all the way to the top of the screen, which makes sense. And then let's go ahead and create our list of alerts. So we're going to put this here, and then depending on what your alerts need to do, sometimes when I'm building my list, I build it the backwards way, kind of. So here I have the title. I'm going to say alert title, and I'm going to build and kind of see if I like the way it looks, and then I'll go in and put in the magic text after I build and connect to my collection. So we're going to do alert title, and then we're going to do a description. All right, that looks good. And then we want people to know when the alert was made, most typically. And then we're going to make sure that's aligned. And then we'll kind of give it some styling here. So let's copy this, and then we're going to bring that over. But we don't want that to be the focal point of everything. So we're going to say show on date. And I use that language on purpose, and I'll talk to you about that in just a second. But then we can make that. And so now when people come to our alerts, they will see when the alert was sent on, or when it was scheduled to be shown, and then what the alert title is. And we can give it a description. Let's keep this description, let's just keep it pretty short. We don't need it to be super long. So I just do 160 characters. Shout out to old school Twitter. And we can put a button here. And let's just make this a call to action so that people understand what they're trying to do. So let's do that there is something for someone to do. So let's just make this a text, and then we will center that. And okay, so now that looks pretty good. Now let's set up our database, and this is where you want to be deliberate and intentional depending on what your alerts are going to do. I'm just going to call this alerts just to keep it in mind here. So I'm going to give it a name. You can also change this to title because when you send a notification, it always has to have a title and a body with it. So mimicking that language just makes it a little bit easier when setting up your actions and what they're going to go along with. So I'm going to do title, body. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to call this date and time to show. And then I'm going to do another date and time property, and this is date and time to send. Okay. And then I'm going to do a toggle here, and I like to call this draft. And what this allows me to do is when I create a new alert, I'm going to go ahead and do the create of the actual record on this particular action. And that gives me some flexibility when working with my form or my inputs, for example, what we're going to build today. And then I can just filter this list and say, show me all of the alerts that are not drafts. And then that could also, if you canceled out of it for whatever reason, you could even save that and have a list of that if you want to. And then we're going to do sending user ID. And let's do a sending username. This could also be a relationship to the user. It's really whatever your use case is. If you are sending alerts in an organization, for example, and maybe you just want this to go to a certain department, you could create that relationship to the department, or you can just use a number property to reference that department as an ID, and that would allow you to filter those alerts for everyone depending on how you want to set that up. Okay, so I've got my database set up. I've got the title, the body, the date and time to show, the date and time to send, draft, sending user, and sending user ID. And so let's go ahead and connect that list. So this is a list of alerts. And let's say on this alert list, I only want to show alerts where the draft is false and the date and time to show is before the current time. Now you may ask, well, why is that important? If you're scheduling alerts and you have a list of alerts, and let's say you schedule it, today is, in my time right now, it's December 17th at 11:13 a.m. If you schedule it for December 19th at 11:13 a.m., you don't want it to show up on your list, and so you want to filter that out. And so the date and time has to be before the current time. It can't be after the current time. That way you only show the most recent and relevant alerts to your users. It's a little trick to add. So it's really nice to be able to have that on there. And so let's connect this magic text now. So we're going to say alert title. We're going to change this to be the alert title. Description, we're going to change this to be the alert body. And then the show on date and time, you can do the date and time. And if you hover over here, it'll show the rest of it. It says to show. And now you can change this to be whatever you want it to be. If you want it relative time, if you want it to be exact time. I prefer exact time just because I want to know exactly when something is happening. And now I have created a landing page for my alerts. I can even go in here and I could say, and title contains search. So now if people search the title, they can find search here, they can find that. One other thing I like to add with my searches is just makes it a little bit easier for users, is I add an icon that clears this for them so that the users don't have to backspace if they search everywhere. So I'm going to do clear search. And we also want to make that to be anchored sticky while scrolling. And so now I can change this input to be, we're going to change the input, and we're going to change the search to empty. And then we only need this to show if the search is not equal to empty. So if someone starts typing in here, this little X will pop up. And when they press this X, it'll clear that value for them, just making their life a little bit easier for a user experience. Okay. So now we have our notification or alert, let's call it hub or home. Now we can focus on actually making the scheduled notification. So to do that, I'm going to create a new screen. I'm just going to do that from here. We're going to link to new screen, and we're going to call this create alerts. All right, and that should be over here. Excellent. So now we have this screen. And depending on how you're building your app, you want to kind of keep your screens in a logical flow. I found, especially the more complicated the app becomes, if you can kind of arrange your app into sections, it'll make your life a lot easier. And especially if someone has to come in and help troubleshoot or help assist you in what you're building, just a logical left to right flow helps out quite a bit. So we have this create alert. We're going to link to that screen, and then we're also going to create an alert. And with this, we're going to set this draft to be true. And I do this so that after I create that alert, it doesn't show up on this particular list, just as another fail-safe, so that I have the time to show and the date is equal to false, just to make sure I don't get anything that I don't want here. And then I'm going to go through and just copy and paste this to make this quickly. and we need to add a link to go back. So if the user accidentally sets that up, they don't need that anymore. And then the other thing I can do is I can just delete that current alert, because I'm making an assumption that if a user starts the alert but then decides not to and just clicks back, they don't want that. You can do that a lot of different ways. You can have a prompt that says, do you want to save this, and click save, and then you can have a whole draft section. That's really up to you. So now I've got the create alerts screen started. If you'll notice, the available data here is the current alert, which is exactly what we want. And then let's go in and start building our inputs so that we can have the schedule notification set up. So you can do this a few different ways. You can just come in here and just use our forms and go through here and set all this up yourself. Most of the time, I like to create my own form, and how I do that is I use a rectangle as my container. And if you remember from one of the other sessions, the container just keeps everything into place. And for now, I'll keep the background on just so I can see what I'm working with. And then I will add a title for what I want it to be. So this is going to be the title. And I don't need it to be medium. I want it light. And I typically come in and set up the first one to be my template for the rest of the form inputs that I'll select. So I'll do this. I'll make sure this is aligned. And then I can make sure this is working like I want it to. And I can say enter title. It's important if you're doing multiple inputs on the screen to go ahead and label that. So this is going to be the title. And now I can go in and see, okay, so I want this to be right in the center of this parent, and it looks like it is. What putting this in this rectangle allows me to do is now I have a title and I need a body, and I can go in and copy this and pull this out. And then I can butt this right up against the other one. And now I have the same spacing for each one of the things. So I can do body, and I'm going to change this to body. I'm also going to allow this one to be multi-line. So if people want to add more text to the body, they can. So I can expand this and enter. And sometimes users don't understand what body means. So this is where you could say something like enter description. Maybe spell it correctly. There we go. Okay, so enter description. And then if you notice the other things that we need, I don't need the draft on there. I do need to do date and time to send. So let's take this one as my single line input. And I'm going to do send on. Okay. Then I can take I'm going to date picker. And this should be the same format. So it should be 40 and 346, 40 and let's make it 346. And then I can just drag that on top of there. And then I go into here and I delete this text field so that I can keep everything uniformed. I'm going to go ahead and label these so I know what they are. Title. This is body. And this is send on. Okay. And then let's make sure that date picker, which is say send on. And in the date picker, you can pick a default date. I would probably in this instance just leave this as none. That way it just is blank. And then you can do style. You want to do date, time, and picker so that we can send that notification correctly. And now I've got my own form that I've created. And for these basic alerts with the title and body and when to send, that's all that I really need. You can get, depending on your use case, you may want to send an image, you may want to send links. And if that's the case, you would just add another property. You could do an image property and then add an option here where people could use the image picker and then associate that with these records. Keep in mind, if you add any links or images, those won't be viewed within the actual notification that a user would see on their device. But when they click into that notification and open the alert details screen, you can then put those images and links there. So just a little tip for you. So now let's do the button, and let's just make this really simple and just call it schedule. And let's see. So we have different icons here. So this would let the user know that they're going to schedule this. And I like to keep my stuff lowercase, and then you can come in here and add your rounding depending on what your styling is for your app. You can make that adjustment. But now I have my schedule button and I've got my form, and I can come in here, and now that I know the spacing that I have, I can just take this off. And so now I have this nice clean form looking here, and these are individual ones, and I can reference these. So what I want to do now is create that scheduled notification. So the first thing I'm going to do is create the actual alert itself. So I'm going to grab the title. So we're matching here. So grab the title and the body and the date and time to show. We're going to do the send on, and the date and time to send is the send on. Is this a draft? This is going to be false. It's no longer a draft. It's live and active. The logged in user ID, and then the logged in user full name. So I've created that alert, and this alert is just specific for my database collection. So now I'm going to schedule the notification. I'm in my notifications. I don't want it to do the trigger notification. That one sends it directly as soon as you hit the button, but we're going to do schedule notification. In my particular use case, I'm going to send this to everyone, so I can just go to users all, and I'm going to filter out the logged in user by ID is not equal to logged in user ID. And that's just a filter that you want to put inside of Adalo anytime you're sending to all users. And this is where, if you were having a group, you could create a relationship to that group in your alert, and then you could put a drop down to select the group, whatever your preference is. So on the schedule notification, this is going to feel very similar to a typical notification you would send, but we want to grab, and we can do the title, we can do the body, and the scheduling date, we're going to do send on. So now we've referenced that date. If you notice, it says no formatting in parentheses. You're going to want to click on here, and under date format, you need to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and it says no formatting. That is imperative in order to send the schedule notification. This puts a timestamp on it that Adalo can read and then send it out appropriately. The repeat type, you can do this in every minute if you want to, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever your preference is. For this use case, we're going to send none. And then what a best practice I like to do is I can send them straight to my notification screen. And that way they'll see all the latest list of notifications on there, and it will be good to go. So now that I've created the schedule notification, all I need to do is click done. And that's going to create that schedule notification within the Adalo system. Now, one thing that you're going to want to do is update the new alert we just created. And we need to add a property here to do this. We're going to add this, and I believe this needs to be a text property, but we're going to say scheduled notification ID. We'll spell that correctly. And I don't always love spaces in my titles, but sometimes it doesn't really make a difference. So now I've got the scheduled notification ID. And why that's important is I want to update the latest alert, and I want to include that scheduled notification job ID. This is an ID that comes unique from Adalo that you really can't change, and it needs to be inputted into the notification for you. So there is that. So now we have created an alert. We have created a list of alerts so that we can see what alerts have already been sent out. We have created the alert by doing a new alert and setting it as a draft as true. And then here we need to actually need to change that out. We can schedule, I'm going to change this action. I think we can do this a little bit better and be more efficient. So now that we have that created, we can go ahead and create the schedule notification. That can stay the same, but now instead of 2 actions for the alerts, we could just update 1 here. So now we can do title, body, and we can do send on. We can do send on. Draft is false, sending user ID, and sending logged in user name, and then schedule notification job ID. So if you notice, what I did is at first I had to create a new alert and then update that new alert. And so that was 1, 2, 3 actions that are happening. While you're building, take some time and think about how can I use as little actions as possible, because that's only going to speed up your app with performance. So what I just changed this to is I already had created an alert, and there's only 1 alert available on this screen. So the data works well. I'll create the schedule notification first, and then I will update the alert with all the same information, change it to false, and then I can grab that job ID for the schedule notification. And that just makes it seem so much smoother for performance purposes. So now I've got the alert created and the notifications tab or screen here to be able to house everything. But what if I need to make a change to that schedule alert? How would I do that? So I'm going to change the spacing a little bit, and I'm going to add another icon here. And I'm going to do, let's see, schedule. And again, I would make this schedule icon and this add an alert icon both admin based on permissions that you set in the collection. That way not everyone can schedule and see alerts. So now that I click this schedule send, I'm going to create a new page to be able to manage my scheduled alerts. I'm going to be able to manage my scheduled alerts. And go grab that screen. So now that I've got that screen set, I'm going to grab this header again. This should have the icon to go back. We don't need to delete that time. And then we're going to see scheduled alerts. Okay. So now that I have this scheduled alert screen, what this is going to allow me to do is go in and have a list of alerts. And we can say draft is false, that's fine. And date and time to show is after current time. What that allows to do is to see all the alerts that are scheduled ahead of time, ahead of this moment, what's scheduled to be seen. And then I can go in and just mimic this screen a little bit and add this search in. Just add that really quick. I'm going to say, let's say search scheduled. That way I know which input I'm referencing. So I can change this input to search scheduled. Sometimes when you copy and paste search inputs, especially with icons, it still references the old input. So just double check that. And then here I'm going to say I wanted to reference this search scheduled. Okay, so now I've got a list of all the alerts that are for future time comparing to right now. So this is the same list. It's going to have the title and the body, and then it's going to have an arrow to let the user know that they have more options. What I would recommend then is I'm just going to do this pretty quickly. So I'm going to copy this create alerts. And now, because we did the text input and because I'm going to delete this so I don't accidentally delete that, I'm going to change this to edit alerts. And I'm going to link this list to edit alerts. So now when I do that, I can change this title to be default value is going to be the current alert's title. Default value for the body is going to be the current alert's body. The send on is going to be the default date. Before it wasn't important, now it is. We're going to do the date and time to send on. And then we can even change this to reschedule. And I'm going to take this out and I'm going to notifications. I'm going to, if someone changes something here, I need to do this a little bit different. I need to schedule or cancel a scheduled notification, and that notification ID is on this current alert. So now I'm referencing an alert scheduled notification. And then I'm going to go into a notification and schedule a new notification. And we're going to go to users all. We're going to filter out again. ID is not equal to logged in user ID. My title, I'm going to reference, it's going to feel very similar to the other ones. And we're going to do send on, and we're going to make sure this is formatting is no formatting. We're going to repeat this, not again, and then we're going to do notifications here. And then I'm going to update the current alert, and I'm going to do the title, the body, date and time to show, date and time to send on, sender ID, user, that can all stay the same. But now I need to update this new scheduled notification job ID. And let me explain why I did everything I just did. When I click on this alert from my scheduled alert, so it's assuming I'm the administrator of the app and I need to see or edit one of these alerts that I'm sending out, this links me to the edit alerts screen, and I need to change this to edit instead of create, just so we don't get confused. So now that I can edit this alert, it's going to pull in as the default value the alert title, the default value of the alert body, and the default value of the date and time picker, or the date and time that I have for that particular alert. And now when I reschedule, I want to cancel that old alert, because if I make any changes to this title or the body or the send on, that old alert is now no longer valid. And let's just cancel and get that out of here. And I grabbed that notification ID that was on the current alert. And then I'm just scheduling a new notification. And this is all going to be the same. I'm going to reference this particular title, this body, and this send on. And you want to make sure you're referencing the input, because if someone changes something here, then it'll update the title what it's supposed to be. And then updating that alert is super important. That way we have all the same information. And then we get to capture that new job ID. And now I have rescheduled that alert, and I don't have to worry about it going to the wrong date and time. The other thing that you can do from here is, let's say you don't even want this anymore. You can create a button down here, and I'm going to put it way down here. Actually, let's move it up a little bit. I'm going to label this. And you can also just delete this particular alert from happening, but you want to do that in a couple of steps. So let's delete. So now I can go in and delete that. I'll take that off here. Let's change this, make sure this looks the same. And for the delete, I try to make that one not as prominent and as, something actually accidentally to do. And then one other fail-safe that you can do is you can do something like this. I'm going to create an "Are you sure?" page. So we're going to label this button delete. We're going to link to a new screen, and we're going to confirm delete of alert. So let's go grab that screen. And then if you want to create a modal type effect, you can add a rectangle down here. And then right now, and we'll fix this eventually, but you need to drag this down so that it stays at the bottom, and just make sure it's sticky. And what I like to do is, if you've never used the rounding's nice, but you can do independent corners. So do 20 and 20. And then we can add some text that says, are you sure you want to delete this alert? We're going to give people one more time before we tell them this can't be undone. And we can put a couple of buttons on here. We will say yes. And then let's get that styling down and say yes, or we can say no. Make sure those are lowercase since that's the rest of our buttons. And now make sure those are aligned. So we have those that are taken care of. And if it's no, then let's just go back to the editing screen. If it's a yes, then let's make sure we have this everything linked. So we're going to click delete. We're going to confirm delete of alert. Available data now, the current alert should be there. And we want to do two things. We want to delete the scheduled notification, and we want to delete the alert because we don't need either one of those to show. And so now we're going to go to notifications, and we're going to cancel a scheduled notification. That'll delete it from being sent. And this notification ID is from the current alerts scheduled notification ID. And we're going to click done. And then we're going to delete the current alert. And then from here, you want to make sure you want to send them somewhere. Otherwise, when you click delete, it'll cancel it, it'll delete the alert, and then just stay on the screen. So let's take them all the way back to scheduled alerts. And then just for formatting fun for this modal, let's make this rectangle white. Let's change the shadow, and we have a little bit of shadow, but if it's Y, let's go -2. That way it shows right here. And then if I'm doing a modal screen, I always take this to 0. Okay, so now what we've done is we've created an alert link to go to our alert screen. We can create an alert, we can view our scheduled alerts, we can then edit the alert and then delete the alert. Let's do the fun, scary part of just seeing if it works. So let's create an alert. Okay, that should be blank. That works.
Kyle, we can't see your screen, but
oh, sorry. Okay, here we go. So I can test that, so that works. And now let's add a new alert. So I'm going to do test alert. I'm going to do test body and see what time is it. It is today at 6:49 a.m. No, let's go down to 11:30. I'm going to do 11:38 for this one just to make sure that it shows on the screen. So we're going to schedule. Okay. And someone see what happened. So I scheduled, but I didn't send them anywhere. So we can just link back. Okay. So let's refresh. And if I go back and let's see if that alert was created. So let's take a look here. So no alert has been created. Let's see. So we're scheduling. We're going to update alert and make sure that the draft is false. And I'm going to is before current time. Let's see here. All right, let's go back here and refresh our screen. We're going to do, let's do it before a minute. Let's do it today at 11:34. Let's do test 2, body, and let's schedule. Okay, so there's my test 2 body. So now that is showing up on my list as an alert. I did it far enough back. Typically for the show on, you want it to be at least 2 minutes past that. I don't have time today, but I can show you how to, I can give you the math equation in the comments of the YouTube to take it back 2 minutes for you. And then let's just see if there's any in the future. So let's do future ones. So let's do test 3, test 4, test 3 body. And let's put this for tomorrow. It'll be the fastest way. And let's just schedule that alert. So now that's scheduled. So there's my test 3 body, but let's say I need to go in and edit that. So I can have my test 3 body. So let's say test 4, change, and then test 4. 4 change, and then let's go through and take that to tomorrow. But now let's do 12:33 instead. And let's reschedule that. And then, so I've rescheduled that. And then we can, there's tomorrow at 12:34, test change body. We might want to go into the builder, and on the reschedule, we might want to link that back too, so that the users have a good experience with that. And then let's see, so I've refreshed the screen. Now let's test deleting this. So let's make sure we have everything up to date. And then I can click delete. It'll say, are you sure you want to delete this alert? I can say no, and just go back. Or I can click delete, and I can say, yes, I do want to delete this alert. And I'm back to my scheduled alerts, which I don't have any alerts for. So one thing you can do, just as a tip here, if you notice, I kind of got stuck in this back weird scenario. I would recommend only having one location to get to these scheduled alerts. And then when I click this back button, instead of getting in that back loop, because the system's only going to do what you tell it to do, I would go back to my notifications here. And that way I have a clean experience. Another thing you could do that I've done several times is we can create a screen that would allow users to just view the alert, and maybe we arrange this a little bit differently. And what we can do is we can add a screen so we can view details. View, let's do alert. So when I click here, we're going to do here, and we're going to click view alert details. And now I can come in here, take all this information off. Don't need that, don't need that. Then I can come in and show the title. And this is where those images and things like that, you can do that. You can add all that information here. So we're going to do semi-bold, medium, and let's do another text, and this will be the body. Oh, using magic text. And then we can also come in, make sure these are together. And you could add when the actual time and date is that it was sent on. That way you can give consistency. You can say add. This is just a larger version of the list, and anything that you want to try to keep the list as clean and easy as possible. So anything else you can add in here, then this could do the full body as well. So let's do, let me come here and refresh. We're going to go back to alerts, and then we can see our test body. Here's our information. We don't really need this search information here. And then that's creating a basic version of notifications. You can get into the weeds here if you want to of creating alerts for people. And depending on how you want to do that, you could do something where you can show notification dots here. So instead of this just being a thing where you can see, read more information about it, you could come in here and say, create a read receipts, read alerts. And for that, you could do something simple like, okay, what is the alert ID? What is the user ID? And then you could have this button show, and we'll do an additional state, and we'll call this unread. And you could show this when the alerts, read alerts count is equal to 0, and you can filter that out and say if the alert ID is equal to current alerts ID and the user ID is equal to logged in user ID, and we can just do a dot or a circle. You can change this whatever you want to, and then you can do it like this, and that will show if the test ID, if the if it's equal to 0, so it doesn't show that I've read that. But then I can come back to my builder and do an action to create a read alert. And the alert ID is a current ID, logged in user ID. And then you can do this. You don't need to do this every single time. You can do this sometimes only if red alerts count is equal to 0. And then we'll just add that filter around. And then the user ID is equal to the logged in user ID. So now when I click on this, it should create a red alert record. And so that I have that. And then now that dot will go away and I no longer have that as an active notification that I've seen. So that is notifications and scheduling notifications. Hopefully that has been helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave comments on our YouTube page. We will get to those and answer any of those questions. And hopefully you've enjoyed the holiday building series. And thank you for being a part of Adalo. We hope to have a conversation soon like this. Have a great day, everyone.